Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Portraits of Faith. Thank you for your patience. I know I'm running a little behind schedule today. I just had to clean up a little bit after Mass. We have a couple people on already. Looks like we have our first person. So if just somebody could just type hi and put it into the chat so that I can see it, so we can make sure that we can bring up responses and people's questions as the time goes on. So, okay, Joe, thank you so much. Thank you for saying hello. All right, so I would like to introduce to each and every one of you my good friend Pete Sanchez, who is the staff writer for the Catholic Star Herald, the award-winning founder of Talking Saints podcast for the Diocese of Camden, and the coordinator for social media for the diocese. Pete, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Father. Thank you so much. I'm humbled, and I would be remiss if I didn't give credit to my Talking Saints co-host, Lori Power.
Uh-huh.
She and I started it, and we've been blessed to be able to continue doing it. So, thank you for the kind words.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, so Pete, basically, this is just a conversation about your faith life, about your relationship with God, your involvement in church, all those things. So, my question to you, and this is the first question that I ask every single guest. So, if you are called upon to be a guest on this show, you'll know what the first question is going to be. What is the earliest memory that you have of faith and of the church? What's the earliest memory that you have?
I think the earliest memory is probably my first communion.
Okay.
I would say I went to Queen of Heaven in Cherry Hill.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember, the white outfits and the singing the song Like a Sunflower. I still
Like a
remember
sunflower. The song is called Like a Sunflower.
oh
Okay.
yeah, that follows every movement of the sun. Um, like
I
I
don't
can
know
do,
that one, Pete. I don't know
oh
that
no,
one.
well I can do the whole. We don't have time, but I could do the whole routine for you because we did a routine with that. But I just remember communion because I remember being a little kid before that
Mm-hmm.
and trying to understand, people were getting up to get communion and I couldn't go up. And I wanted to. My dad kept saying, when you're older. And second grade rolled around. The good sister Catherine, IHMs, she taught us, prepared us for the sacrament
Mm-hmm.
and got in the white outfits. And I remember we even got the VHS tape that we watched. We were able to, every student got, every communicant, I should say, got a VHS tape, and we were able to watch it with family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was 9 years old. I think that's my earliest memory of the church
And,
in Queen of Heaven.
and what impression did it? I know you had that. You talked about that expectation, that waiting. Uh, what was your? How did that affect you? Like, how did it make you feel? Like, what was the end result of you finally receiving your first Holy Communion in your mind as a second grader?
Well, it kind of brought me in. I know it might sound cliche, but it brought me. I was in. I was able to receive communion like everybody else, so I felt
Mm-hmm.
more part of the congregation. And through that, I honestly can't remember if I was an altar boy before or after First Communion, but I did a lot of that. In
Okay.
grade school, I was an altar server, and it kind of brought me deeper into the family, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
into the
And
church
and
family.
it's kind of interesting to note, as my dog is at the door and is requesting to come inside, uh, that when you're an altar server, for anybody who has been an altar server, it's kind of interesting that you get a whole entirely different perspective of what Mass is like. Um, I always say to my parishioners that being on the altar is the best seats in the house because you get to see and really experience everything. Everything is kind of you get to see the whole of everything. Did you find that when you were an altar server that you kind of saw things from a little bit of a different perspective?
I did when I wasn't messing up, being an altar server. You have growing pains when you do your first couple altar server experiences, but you're right. I got to be there for Mass. I remember celebrating Easter Sunday Mass with God rest his soul, Monsignor Aileen, and he told me to get the bucket, which was to bless
The holy water bucket.
Thank you. Yes, and I instead got a plastic white bucket and brought it to the door, and here he is shaking his head, no, and so it was those kind of learning. It was
Yes.
all learning experiences, and then of course sometimes we during school, especially when I was getting older, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, we would get called in the school day if they needed servers for the funeral. So I got to see what the funeral mass and just participate in the life of the church in that way too. So you're right, Father. You kind of get to see behind the scenes of how things work.
And what was your family like as terms of faith? Did you and your family go to church together all the time?
We did. We went every Sunday, 12:15 Mass at Queen of Heaven, and we did participate afterwards. There was we were active. I would say I grew up in a Catholic household. We said the Rosary. We said prayers before bed, and just I'm thankful for that. My family, my dad grew up Catholic, and my mother grew up Baptist. So I kind of have that. I grew up with the evangelical side, but also the Catholicism.
So talk about the evangelical side. How did that inform your faith a little bit, Pete? What imprint did it place on you?
Well, interestingly enough, Father, it was my grandparents. My mother is from Arkansas, so every summer we go to Arkansas. And I think from my grandparents, I never remember a birthday card or a Christmas card that didn't have a Bible scripture on it. And my grandmother was always singing hymns. Oh, how I love Jesus because he first loved me. Like, I guess you didn't know how much singing I do, Father. Just you're getting me warmed up.
Oh, it's all right, Pete. It's okay. It's all right. We're totally okay.
It's so I think really just getting that spirit, that joyful spirit from the evangelical, but also being raised Catholic and understanding the tradition of the church and being an altar server. I could I feel like in some ways I do have that evangelical part in me. And so it's not to say with the Catholic of course reading the Bible, reflecting on scripture, but I think that was kind of that was just the experience that I had.
Do you have a favorite scripture verse?
I don't have it memorized. I should, but it is it's St. Paul when he says, I forget what letter it is, but it is, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Okay.
And I think I don't want to get it wrong. So
No. That's pretty right. That's pretty right.
Yeah, St. Paul was pretty awesome.
Awesome. So, so where did you go to high school, Pete?
I went to St. Joe's Prep in North Philadelphia, just over the river.
What was that like? I mean, it's a preparatory school. It is close to Cherry Hill, but it's across the river. It's steeped in the Jesuit tradition, right? So, what was that like?
It was an amazing experience. I think for me, um, I went there to visit open house in 8th grade, and I just realized this is where I want to be. And the experience of going to that, we learned about, of course, St. Ignatius, who's still one of my loves. He's just one of my favorite saints. I learned about, his core principles, the Ad Majorem Dei Gloriam, everything for the greater glory of God.
Right.
Especially the Magis,
Right.
which is the more, always trying to get the higher, always reaching for higher things. So I was really, for those 4 years, just drenched in that Ignatian spirituality, which I've come to love. And the Philippians 4:13, that's a passage?
That's it. That's the passage.
Okay, great.
So.
That just came up. Wonderful. But I think with the with St. Ignatius, I really, through the school, I developed good friendships that I maintain to this day. The teachers were amazing. I took Latin for 3 years, which really, as somebody who loves to read and write, that helped me out, because in Latin there's so many English has so many roots in Latin.
Yes.
But I think with the faith at St. Joe's, through the retreats, through the campus ministry experiences, I was a campus minister for the underclassmen when I was a junior and senior. It just was it was a very formative experience in terms of really forming me into a man for others, as the motto is over there. Forming men for others to serve Jesus Christ.
Now, when you were there, how much of the spirituality of St. Ignatius did you learn about? In other words, did you learn about the discernment of spirits? Did you participate? Like, did you read any of his works? Like, what was how did they express the spirituality of St. Ignatius?
I think through I honestly can't remember. I think we of course we learned about St. Ignatius' life. In Pamplona, a cannonball, his leg was shattered, and in his vanity, he had them reset his leg after they had already done it. They broke it again, and then he became a soldier for Christ. So I don't know about the discernment of spirits specifically, but those parts, the Magis and the AMDG, Ad Majorem Dei Gloriam, is what I kind of remember in those classes, and being a man for others and service too, because we would go out and we would help the community in North Philadelphia. It was a mission. It was we learned about his mission, and I don't know if that answers the question.
Okay, that's all right. Now, Pete, you went through something in high school. Would you feel comfortable in sharing that with the people?
Sure. Well, okay. So rewind. It was my sophomore year in the fall, and as I usually did in high school, my buddies and I were watching pro wrestling, and I don't know. You're not a pro wrestling guy, are you?
I was very much a pro wrestling guy, Pete, believe it or not.
So we were watching Hulk Hogan and WCW. Anyway, but I had a moment where I nearly passed out, and my dad, thanks to God, he's a doctor. Not only that, he's a heart doctor. So he helped me, and fast forward to the next summer, I had open heart surgery.
And what was that for? What was that open heart surgery for?
That was just, I had a hole in my heart that was congenital before I was born, when I was born, and they needed to fix that up. And so I had open heart surgery, and that kind of, that rocked my world. At that time, I'd been playing lacrosse, and I had to stop playing lacrosse. And But at the same time, I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. And if I can expound a bit on how that changed my life.
Sure. That's why I asked the question. That's why I asked the
Okay,
question.
well, I don't know how deep into the weeds you want me to go with this.
As far as you'd like to go. my friend.
Well, I just remember what came to me in the days and weeks recuperating. And by the way, I have to give a shout out to my pastor, Father Tim Byerly. Now, life is cyclical. When I was the evening before my surgery, he was at Holy Eucharist Parish right down the road.
Mhm.
And he prayed over me and said a prayer. And I've ever been grateful for that. And then lo and behold, now he's my pastor in Merchantville, and I couldn't be more blessed. So I just have to give a shout out to him. He's amazing. Father Tim is such a spiritual, and he helped me out during that time and still does. But right after the surgery, I remember one of the things my dad always said to me is, we are all in God's hands. And that is something that I've kept with me. And I try to live my life on, it might sound morbid, but one of the things I try to believe, two things. One is you're going to die, which I know might sound fatalistic, but death gives this life, I believe that death gives this life so much meaning because we don't know when it's coming, and we have to make every moment count. And so that's what I've been trying to do since it was over 20 years ago. And the other thing I try to remember is it's not about me. I'm part of a greater story.
Mhm.
And I can't talk to you here and say that I didn't have those difficult moments through all of this. In some ways, sometimes I still do. But I know that God has a plan for me, and I'm here. And whatever. Yeah, I can't say there was anger, but I can't say there wasn't anger with all of this.
Right. How did it affect your life of prayer? How did you pray through all that? I know, like, through my own heart surgery, the days leading up to it, it kind of dawned on me, yo, dummy, you got to start praying for yourself, as before you go through this. And even, praying, I remember as they were wheeling me back for surgery, just praying and just praying Hail Marys as they put the oxygen or the anesthesia over the mask over my mouth, and me passing out and then waking up. And once I became conscious, the first thing I just said was, "Thank you, Jesus," because I'm still alive. I'm still alive. Thank you. You brought me through this. And I prayed Hail Marys until they pulled the trach out, the intubation, not the trach, the tube out. Which, by the way, I have a really bad gagging reflex. So you're just like trying to because they have to wake you up before they can pull it out, which was not fun. It was not fun. But
you're giving me flashbacks.
sorry, Pete. So, like, what was that? What was that like for you, faith wise? I know, like you said, that it gave you a better understanding of your immortality, of the fact that God was calling you to do something, and that you're much of a much larger picture, that it wasn't about you. But what else? How else did it affect your faith?
Well, I think it really made me understand that I saw the love from people around me. Friends visited, my family took care of me, Father Tim. And it just, I think, like I said, it just made me realize that life is precious, and trying to, it did bring me into scripture more. And the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And that has been comforting. And also, I think it's given me, it's helped me understand the plight of others in some ways, because I may not pretend to know what they're going through, but I've had difficult moments like them, and I just try to help people understand that God is always there. That's kind of I would say there's everything before heart surgery and then after heart surgery
Right.
for me, and that was such a line of demarcation, if you will, in my life. Like it kind of going through, processing it over the years. Because like I said, it wasn't easy. It wasn't like I had all these thoughts like, rah, God is awesome, like a year or even 5 years after this happened.
Mm-hmm.
But it's come to understanding this and putting it in the rearview mirror and understanding why I went through this. And also, realizing that I have to praise him for every day
Mm-hmm.
in Thanksgiving.
Good stuff, Pete. So, so you graduate high school and you go to another Jesuit institution, St. Joe's. Did you apply to any other schools?
I did. I did, but St. Joe's was really the one for me.
Uh-huh.
It the same thing. Like I went there, I visited, and right on City Ave, it was a beautiful campus. I liked the English department there. I'd met some of the teachers before, and so I went there and became a proud Hawk, and was there for probably the best run in the Hawks basketball program. So I was very happy for that.
Was that Jameer Nelson?
It was Jameer Nelson, Delonte West. That was a magical year at Phil Martelli, and that was a not many people know this, but the Hawk, right? The Hawk will never die.
Yes.
I was actually an orientation Hawk.
You were an orientation Hawk, so you donned the outfit.
Well, yeah, I did. How it happened was I was an orientation leader called a red shirt. So what we did is before the students came in, they had 3 different orientation weekends where incoming freshmen would come in on Fridays and stay till Sunday. They stayed on the campus. We'd have events. We'd have different programs. So I think it was the second orientation year. So it was between my sophomore and junior year. The leader of the red shirts, I guess a to be senior or a senior to be, asked me to be an orientation Hawk. I guess the person who was a Hawk, they were in between. It was a summer. So he said, well, all you'll have to do is come out and during the thing. So what happened was at the beginning, everybody would crowd into the gym. All the freshmen, when they would come in, they'd crowd into the auditorium. And the crowd would do a dance to thing was Everybody Dance Now or something. I can't remember.
Right.
And so not the crowd, but the red shirts would come out and dance. And then at some point they point to side stage, and then I'd come out with the wings flapping. And I did that for three times, 3 Saturdays. And that was a cool experience. It surprisingly was very easy to see in. So that was cool. But I would never ever put myself on the level of the people who do that for, the people who are in that Hawk costume game in and game out. They're incredible. You
have to constantly keep flapping your arms.
Exactly. And I knew some of those guys. I had some of those guys as friends, and they were telling me that the one guy was practicing all summer doing that, before the first game. So like I said, it was a cool moment, but I'm nowhere near. I have the highest respect for all the Hawks to keep soaring. So, but the experience, with the Jesuit experience at St. Joe's, it was the same with the the Manjis, and especially even being an orientation leader, you got to see every every summer these students would come in and they learn about the Jesuit. This is when I did learn about the spiritual exercises, or different retreats, or the I was more involved with service at St. Joe's.
Now, did you go on retreats as a college student that St. Joe's held?
I did. I went to, actually, one of the coolest things I did, and I wish I'd done it more than once, was Project Appalachia, where I went to Appalachia. I think some say Appalachia, so I'm trying to cover my bases. Nice, Ed. Ed, the hawk will never die. I think Ed's an alum. I hope. But with
Project Appalachia. So what was that like?
Project Appalachia was a service experience where every year St. Joe's sent college students to different parts of of Appalachia, to West Virginia, to Kentucky, to I think those were the three. Those were the states. But when I went to Hazard, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
That was your junior year, and we spent spring break. We took a van, 12 hours down there, and I remember working on service sites, helping to put up a house, helping to level a ground. We met this single mother and her child, this poor area, and needed ground leveling, clean up some rock. Doing that, and learning about the Hazard was a lot of those Appalachian towns are coal mining towns. So we learned a lot about the history of the coal mines in Hazard. And I did that with about 29 other people. And it just was one of the best experiences. I remember one night we had the night off, and we went to hear this fantastic Kentucky bluegrass music. And I had the CD, and I lost the CD, and I wish I remember the band. Just that kind of authentic. We learned about the authentic living down there and how. And one of the things I remember about those individuals who I encountered there, they're joyful, even through all of this. All the suffering and the poverty, they had that joy to them. Not all the time, but you could see it interacting with them. Occasionally, and it just was. It was a very powerful experience.
Now, when you went on that, did they unpack that for you? Did they? In other words, did you reflect after each day about stuff that you were doing? How that led to a life of prayer, like what Christ has taught us. All this. Did they do any type of reflection like that? Did you participate in any reflection?
Yeah, we had reflection. Sometimes we would play music, a music reflection. Sometimes we would just chat in our own small groups, and that was just seeing another part of the world, another part of the country, and seeing and being able to help these individuals, and seeing the need of service, and how we can be Jesus for others. We can do as he did. And that's something I remember. The days were pretty structured. We had a set. We had lunch. We had lunch. We had either breakfast, lunch, or dinner duty. And lunch duty would be people needed to make lunches for every person going on, because we eat on site. But then breakfast and dinner, there was the cleanup, the preparation crew, the cleanup, the preparation, the serving crew, and the cleanup crew. And so we had it was a regimen. It was a regimen of getting things done. There's a discipline of work, but also of prayer. Ora et labora. So that's kind of the monastic life, right?
Right.
So, and then we were sent out as well. So after the prayer, because we never started the day without prayer, or went to bed without prayer.
Now, what type of, I know that every semester you needed to take a theology class, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What was the was there anyone in particular, any class in particular that that influenced you, that really touched you, and you carry stuff with it now?
Do you mean theology wise
Yes.
or
Mm-hmm.
anybody?
Just in general. In general.
I think I would say Mr. Oldham. No, Mr. Oldham was high school. I'm sorry. I think college. I can't remember the name, but I do like. I think one of the classes. I know one of the classes we took was on world religions.
Uh-huh.
So learning just about the different aspects of, say, Jainism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, learning the different components of how people, how people make sense of the world, I guess, and try to, and how we're all connected.
Okay.
So I think.
So you graduate with a degree in journalism.
Yes.
And what is your goal as you're leaving college? What do you see in your mind? Like what does in your mind, what are you trying to do with your life at this point, Pete? Like what are you thinking of as you're graduating college?
I wanted to write. I wanted to find a job writing. One of the things I remember most, waking up as a little kid, Jason Stark reading the Sunday paper, reading his baseball column, rumblings and grumblings on the Phillies. And so I wanted to be a baseball writer, and I still loved the game. And I actually interned at sports radio at WIP, and I got to write some stuff, which was fun. That was actually during my graduate year. After I graduated, I did a graduate year in writing studies. So that was a journey, learning about different styles of writing, from screenwriting to business writing, creative writing. So I wanted to stay on that track. And then once I graduated from that, once I got my master's, also from St. Joe's.
Oh, I didn't know you had your master's, Pete. Look at you.
It just, no, it was another year. So I spent 9 years all told in Jesuit education.
And you still believe in Jesus, Pete. It's amazing. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. I'm Jesuit trained too. I did my degree in canon law at the Pontifical Gregorian University, which is run by the Jesuits. I couldn't help it. Pete, you set it up. I had to spike it. I could not help it.
It's okay. You're good. No, so I'm thankful for those experiences. And after I got my master's, I realized I needed, I wanted to work, I wanted to write, but also at that point, my college and high school careers had really illuminated my faith through retreats, through my personal life, through interactions with classmates. I was very involved at the colleges in different spiritual organizations. I was involved in campus ministry at St. Joe's University. I was a lector, helped out with that. And I knew I wanted to do something with my faith, because I do feel, God gives us all gifts. And I know I believe that he gave me a gift to write and to communicate. And I don't want to keep it under a bushel basket, so to speak. I want to use it for his glory. Like I said, I'm part of the bigger story. And This life is not about me. He has given me this. And, I'm going to quote Peter Parker here, and I think you know what I'm going to say: with great power comes great responsibility. Spider-Man. But I think for me that rings true in that I have to use my writing. It's something I love to do. So what happened was I was looking for a job, and my best friends, he's still my best friend, his mother told me about Star Herald newspaper. The Catholic Star Herald was looking for a staff writer. And I didn't. I knew peripherally about the Star Herald. My parents were getting it. So I read it occasionally. And funny enough, a friend that I'd gone to college with and grade school with, and no, actually not college. I went to high school and grade school with him. He was working there.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew he was working there, and then I applied for the job. And funny enough, I got his old desk because he was moving to do other. He was moving on to other things. So I got the job. I started the day after Martin Luther King Day in January after I interviewed, and I've been there since, and it's been a blessing. Been a blessing.
Now, how many years ago was that?
That was 2007, January 2007.
Okay, so you've been working there all this time. So what's it been like? I know it's there are blessings and crosses that come with working for the church. You get some opportunity to do some really cool things, but it's hard. Sometimes it is a cross, it is a trial. So not that I want you to give your all of your all your deepest darkest secrets kind of thing, but can you talk about that a little bit? Can you express that a little bit?
Well, I think, of course, with any job, there are challenges. And I think it's about, it's like life. You learn to collaborate on a greater mission. You learn to collaborate and put aside your differences for the greater good and to serve this diocese. So I've been happy to work with the staff where we're on mission for the Lord. And every week, I keep saying it's like alchemy. I don't know how we do it, but every Wednesday we somehow get the paper out. I mean, I still don't know. Really, we did that? It's a well-oiled machine, and that's what I want to emphasize. It's a team.
Wow.
And it's a team of writers. There's other writers. There's an editor. There's editorial assistant, a graphic designer, videographers, photographers, admin, and and the team even expands too with the priests and the laity and the people who work in the churches and we're all one. We're all on mission. We're all trying to get to the same place.
What was the best thing that you ever wrote, you think, for the Star Herald, Pete?
Best thing. Gosh, Father, that's
or what was your best experience that you ever covered as part of the Star Herald? Maybe that's a little bit of an easier question.
Well, I will say I've had the privilege of going on two National Catholic Youth Conferences in 2019 and 2017. That was more recent. That comes to mind. And I was on a bus with 30 other youth and adults going to Indianapolis on fire for the Lord. And we joined hundreds of thousands of other youth we left Thursday night and we came back Sunday. And it was amazing, the talks that we heard. We heard music from people like Matt Maher, who I actually got to interview a few years ago for a CD. That's another piece that's separate to, but I'd met him at NCYC and then interviewed him later on by phone. So that was neat. He's a singer-songwriter. But I think with NCYC, just to see the youth of the church on fire, it was very inspiring to me because I was not involved. And if I can digress a bit, Father, the big blessing that I've seen with this, working for the church is being active in a young adult ministry. Because in grade school, Queen of Heaven, I don't know, maybe they had one, but I wasn't involved. I just, for whatever reason, not a youth ministry, but it wasn't until I started working at the paper where I saw the value of finding a community like your own. So with the young adult community, I found friends that have become family and strengthening together in the faith. And I love seeing that with the youth of the diocese because we're just making they were making bonds with people, and how one of the cool things that people would do is, and that is how we met Father. I remember those days. But I think with NCYCs, you see I just remember one of the big things last November was people trading hats. And people would, they'd have like an octopus hat, and they'd like, oh, I see a guy in a sombrero. I want to see if he wants to trade. And that guy would be from Texas or something. So then they talk and they'd have a chat and they trade hats. And that is such an interesting way to communicate. And because you're meeting people from Oregon, from California, from Florida, from North Carolina, from Wisconsin. And the joy that these youth have, and the credit goes to their youth ministers too for fostering it, but they come out to NCYC. And I was talking because I had my microphone on the whole time, my recorder, my pen and pad, my camera. And I remember this one girl who was shy at the beginning. She totally, by the end of the time, she was out of her shell, and I could tell that it had deeply affected her. And I'm drawn to those stories of transformation, like Saint Ignatius or Saint Paul. I don't think that's a coincidence that those are the two saints I've mentioned so far through all this, because I'm drawn to those stories of conversion and transformation. How, in some ways, I'm amazed and I'm inspired by those individuals who can make that decision. Okay, I'm going to serve the Lord. And it's amazing. And it's amazing to see that happen with the youth, especially the youth. They're a blessing in this diocese, and Jose Rodriguez has done so much to build up the youth So
you got on just as recently over the past couple of years. You kind of got on the ground floor and helped birth a lot of the social media and the podcasting that the diocese does right now. You are in control of the Facebook page and Twitter, correct?
Yes.
And you got off the ground talking Catholic, and also that you and Laurie have found a wonderful chemistry and niche in talking saints. How has that affected your faith, being involved in kind of like the heart of the new evangelization and trying to preach about the gospel in new and unique ways and medium, a new medium in terms of an online presence? How do you think that's affected your faith, Pete?
Well, I think we have to go where the people are, and they're in podcasts. I love podcasts. I listen to them constantly. They're a source of joy for me and insight and information, and even the Catholic podcasts. Just going to throw out there the Pints with Aquinas is a fantastic podcast, and a few other ones. But with Talking Saints, I think with Laurie and even Talking Catholic, I think those programs are just wonderful ways to reach others, and it's a new medium. And I'm fortunate with Laurie is somebody I knew. We talked about the St. Rose Young Adult Ministry. I met her through that, and we kept that friendship up. And what I wanted to do is, with the saints, is to show that humanity of the saints, to show that, I think it was Pope Francis who said, I think sainthood is not a privilege for some, but a vocation for all. Something to that effect. Is something we all can attain, no matter who we are. And like I said, I'm interested in those conversion stories. And another one, probably my favorite saint, is Saint Augustine of Hippo, because I say to myself, if he can become a saint, anybody can become a saint. Because he had such a wild life, fathering a child out of wedlock. And I think not only his story shows the power of what God can do, but what can family do? Because his mother, Saint Monica, constantly prayed for him. So, that's a double whammy right there, and it's beautiful. So stories like Saint Augustine, Saint Monica, we just recorded one last month on Saint Philip Neri, who I didn't know too much about, but he's one of my favorite saints now. He was humble. He just spread the gospel, and he lived his life in zeal.
And he had a great impact on the city of Rome. He did.
And especially he re-evangelized Rome in a lot of ways, because he brought people back to the faith during the Protestant Reformation, the Counter-Reformation, actually, if you will, right?
Right.
He was such a big figure, and I want people to know that it's possible for anybody, for all of us, to become saints. That is our call. And also to know these stories of these ordinary men and women who were called. They were not so much different from us. They had their struggles. They had their desires, but they realized that there was something greater that they should attain to. They shouldn't attain for wealth or material possessions or. I love St. Augustine. One of his favorite passages in the book Confessions. Have you read it?
I have not. I have not read the Confessions. I know I'm a bad priest. I haven't read the Confessions.
Well, do you mind if I pull this up and just read this?
Sure, Pete. Go ahead.
Okay. No, it's and I have to say, this is again Father Tim. He told me about this. And he actually said it during Mass, and it's something I try to keep. He said, I'm just going to read a little bit of this. This is what St. Augustine wrote in the Confessions. And this actually, I pray this every now and then because I try to remember this is the power of God. Late have I loved you, O beauty, ancient and ever new. Late have I loved you. You were within me, but I was outside, and it was there that I searched for you. And then at the end, he says, you breathed your fragrance on me. I drew in breath, and now I pant for you. I've tasted you. Now I hunger and thirst for more. You touched me, and I burned for your peace. It's a lot longer, but I just love that last line. You touched me, and I burned for your peace. And I feel that way. I'm burning for the peace of Christ. I feel like that's what I'm. And he's depicted with a burning heart a lot of times in artwork.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah. So he's and just again, with talking saints and talking Catholic, I think they're doing good work. Talking Catholic, Mike Walsh, and with Cara Janice and Mary McCusker and Mary Nella Nunez, and they're all doing fantastic work, trying to evangelize and get interesting speakers and great speakers to just share the faith. And with Lori Power and I, with Talking Saints, it's just been a blessing to not only share these stories, but learn about these stories. I love delving into the lives of these individuals and learning about them and sharing their stories. Sharing.
So, other than about St. Philip Neri, would you say the St. Philip Neri was the one that kind of like, well, here's a saint that I don't know a whole lot about, but he's really inspired you? Have there been other saints like that, or has he been the one?
There's been him. I will say, Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati. Mm-hmm. He's not a saint yet per se, but we did talk about him. He's another one with his life, and he grew up in Italy, and he died young. I think he died in his 20s, but he was big with Catholic social teaching, and even he would make Catholic fellowship groups. And what he'd like to do is he liked his cigars, he liked his music, he loved hiking, getting in the outdoors. And one of the things he would always say is verso lauto, which is attributed to him, to the heights. Like, always onward and upward, for the Lord.
Right.
And I try to think that. So that's an instance with him, and somebody, who else? Saint Joan of Arc is another one who we talked about on last year's program, and she just celebrated her feast day recently again, May 30th, and she's another fascinating. Saint Joan of Arc is a rock star for me now. Incredible, the defense of the faith, and she just was pretty amazing in her belief and dying for her faith, being a martyr of the church. So I would say those three. I'm sure there are more, of course, but those three are the ones that spring to mind about, looking back. It's been such a joy and pleasure to get to know them and be able to now pray to them for me and my family and my friends.
So you're pretty active at St. Peter's and lots of different things. You're involved with the Knights of Columbus. You go to mass there. Like that's considered you consider that your spiritual home. How has your parish been for you? Like what does St. Peter's mean to you?
I would say.
By the way, just as a brief aside, Pete has asked in kindness if he could wear a hat because he, like many of us, have not had an opportunity to get a haircut. Now, I have been blessed. I have gotten a haircut several times. So I feel I'm like one of the lucky ones. But Pete's like, Father, do you think they'd be upset if I wear a hat? I'm like, Pete, you can wear a hat. It's all right. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So that's why Pete is representing the Phils, and the P is not for Pete Sanchez. The P is for Philadelphia.
Gosh, thanks for now the secret's out, Padre. Now the secret's out. I think with St. Pete's, I started going there because I moved into the area, got an apartment, and it just was home for me. It's been my home. I've been fortunate to be a knight for about 7 years now, 8 years. And we, last week I was there to prepare for the reopening of the church. Thanks be to God. That's going to happen soon. And I'm a lector, and I just couldn't be happier there. It's such a community of faith. And Father Tim is my pastor. I couldn't be happier with him. It's just become home for me. It really, I can, with the Knights, and they do so much. Like we just did a St. Vincent de Paul food drive, and where people were bringing their groceries, their non-perishable items, and the Knights were picking them up, taking them right out of the trunk, and then put them in the food pantry. So that was I would say that's, the Knights have been probably my best experience being a parishioner at St. Pete's. And thanks be to God, Pope Francis just announced that its founder, Father Michael J. McGivney, is going to be beatified.
That's great. I saw that. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. So, and I think St. Pete's. Oh, and also I can't forget about the Adoration Chapel, the Perpetual Adoration Chapel. With you can go there, anytime you want, and pray in front of the Blessed Sacrament, and that's been such a blessing and comfort to me. I've used that multiple times. It's been such a real joy for me to have that, to be able to pray, to just bring my rosary or a spiritual book and just sit and spend some quiet time with the Lord, which I recommend for anybody.
So, Pete, what's next? What do you have? What in terms of your faith? What's next for you? What do you think?
What do you mean? What's next for me?
Like, what do you have next? What are you planning for next? Like, what's on the radar, faith wise, for Pete Sanchez?
Well, it's I don't know. I don't know. Like I'm if I can mention this time that we're in now of quarantine with everything that's been going on with COVID-19, it's horrible. I pray for all the people affected with what's going on, and thankful for the first responders and doctors and nurses. And I think this time, for me at least, has been a time to, I know I mentioned to you, but I've always wanted to go on retreat, silent retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what's happened. I read an article that we're kind of all monks now. In some way, we're kind of confined to our homes, and we're definitely is not a normal we want to get used to. But I think silence is a way where, at least for me, God can work His magic.
Mm-hmm.
And I know
Right.
for me, there's the music on, the TV on, and the distractions of the outside world, of the city, going out, and I think with this time, it's a time to really to look inward and understand what God is doing. And I'd love my little spiritual quotes. Do you mind if I tell you something else?
Sure, go ahead.
One of the things I just found, which I always love sharing it with others, is when I find nuggets of wisdom, I like sharing them. I have to pass it on.
Right, absolutely.
But I found this particularly useful now. Psalm 61, verse 2. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. And I just, lead me to the rock that is the Lord. Lead me to Him so He can show me the way through everything. And He's been a comfort in this time of, doubt, of isolation, of fear, for my family and friends, worrying about them, if they're going to get COVID. And just, this is such, it's a difficult moment for all of us now, but I just would like to say, the Lord takes we're all in God's hands.
So Monk Sanchez, you're always reading something. So what are you reading right now? Like what's the spirit? If you could say what spiritual book you're reading right now, and while I plug in my computer.
Okay. Well, the spiritual books I'm reading now is Cardinal Robert Sarra's The Power of Silence.
Okay.
It's a fantastic one. During this whole time I've been reading it, it's little nuggets of information, and you can digest them pretty. I think, you can. You do have to let them sink in. So I would recommend The Power of Silence, and that is one. And then what's another one that probably I just read recently? No, I would say this book, the 3 Minute Aquinas. I forget the name of the author, but that is 3 minutes.
I'll look it up. I'll look it up for you, Pete.
Okay, yeah. No, it's because that's a great distillation of who Thomas Aquinas is, and that was instrumental when we did a podcast on him. Was St. Thomas, and it just it was that's just there's so many. You know me, I'm a reader, so I'm a sponge. I try to soak everything up during this time.
And who's the if we could get a little it's by Kevin Vost, is the name of the
Yeah.
author.
Do you mind if I actually get another book that I have?
Sure, no problem, Pete.
Okay, I'll be
Go
right.
ahead.
Yeah. Let me see.
So I just want to encourage everybody to make sure that that you follow. It's basically Talking Catholic and Talking Saints. So you can follow those podcasts. I know they're on SoundCloud. They're also on iTunes and Google Play. You can also find them on the diocesan website. There are lots of places that you can go and find Pete and Lori and Mike Walsh and the cast and crew of Talking Catholic, and just really learn about stuff about the diocese and about our local church. Truly wonderful. And I'm not saying that even though I am the voice of Talking Catholic.
You are live from the vault.
Live from the vault.
Yeah.
High atop the pastoral center, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
This is I don't know, everything's reversed here, right?
No, you should
Oh,
be.
maybe
No,
not.
Nope, not here.
What? Can you see it? Tried by Fire, William
Okay.
Bennett. That is a fantastic book, The Story of Christianity's First 1,000 Years. And that is a fantastic book. Something, a blind spot of mine is the early Christianity. And I'm a big historical buff too. So it's a good read.
Okay. All right. I know we've gone a little bit over an hour, but does anybody have any questions for Pete? Anybody have anything? I know there were some people that asked if you knew some people, like Ed wanted to know if you knew Dennis McNally. I don't know if he was a professor there or a prominent person.
I think I knew his name. I think he was I think Father McNally was an artist.
Okay.
Maybe an art teacher. And I did not know Pat McGreevy.
No, you did not. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Because Pat is the neighbor of one of my parishioners. So.
Oh, cool. Oh, nice.
So there is a little bit of a delay in people asking questions because there's about a 7-second delay. So we're just going to wait and see if anybody has anything to ask. If not, I definitely have a question to ask. So.
Yes, I do miss baseball, Father.
And then no, but it is about baseball. It is about baseball. And it's not about the Mad Clapper.
Oh my gosh! You brought that up. Now it's totally not an inside joke anymore. You just broadcast it live. Oh my gosh! Yeah, Father and I had season tickets for a couple of years there with the Phillies, and what was the other thing? The T-shirt of necessity or the sweatshirt?
No, the sweatshirt of necessity and the hat of matching.
And it was all because we didn't realize that we could go home and still win that lottery.
No. The sweatshirt was different. Okay, so here's what happened. We went to a game in April, and it was nice and warm walking to the stadium. It was perfect, a beautiful day. But where we were sitting behind home plate, and there was no sun there whatsoever. And we froze, pardon the wrong. We froze our rear ends off. We were so cold. I was so cold, even though I was wearing like a thermal shirt. I went downstairs and bought a $75 sweatshirt. I'm like, I got to get a sweatshirt. I'm freezing. And then there was another game that we weren't at our normal seats. There were people in front of us that clapped for no reason. And they were the Mad Clappers, right? And there was this one woman, and she's just sitting there going like this. I'm like, this woman is clapping at nothing. Nothing is going on in the game. She's a Mad Clapper. Now, we were also in a game that got rained out. And there was nobody in the stadium. We got there. We thought this would be great. We'll put in money for the raffle. We might be able to get some money. We thought we had to stay to like a certain time. Well, we got drenched. We were soaking wet. Poor Pete. He's like, Father, my socks are wet. What do we do? I'd like, go downstairs to the store. I'm sure they're selling socks there. Are you sure? Yes, they sold socks. So Pete has a pair of socks,
I
but we
do.
didn't realize that we could go home. We stayed there like an hour and a half longer than we should have,
Yeah,
in the pouring rain.
I know. It just, yeah,
It was a good time.
it
It was
was.
a
No,
good
I
time.
always remember. Thank you, Tim. Thank you. So
So
yeah.
my question to you, Pete, is will there be baseball this summer?
Well, there is. What do you mean in the U.S.? Because there is baseball in Korea. I've
I'm
watched
not going to
them
watch
too.
Korean baseball.
No,
I can't bring
no,
myself
they're
to it. I
fun.
can't.
Oh my gosh, they're fun. They're fun. Roberto Ramos is a stud. I forget what team he plays for. He's the one. He's the name. Um, I forget the other guys' names. Yeah, they're. It's just fun. But I think stateside, a little touch and go. I'm hoping the owners and players can come to an agreement. But I think a lot of factors with money.
Mhm.
I think, of course, with safety. I think if they can't guarantee the safety of players, it's going to be tough to have a year. And I'm of the mind where you've already lost 2 months of the season already, the regular season. What you should do is try something different. Um, you should try something different. You should try I don't know, like a home run derby if games are tied after the ninth inning. You're going to have a shortened season, but I think it would be very difficult to not have a season, and then to come back in 2021.
Right.
Or the other side is, well, people will be so starved for baseball that they'll want it back and they'll watch.
Right.
But then the other thing too is what I was reading is the minor leagues. They've unfortunately shut down a lot of minor league teams. And
So what's going to happen when the rosters expand, or when you need to call up players and all that kind of fun stuff? So
not only that, but you're hurting those communities that depend on the minor league baseball and even support those teams. Like there are so many minor league baseball players that you've never heard of that are instrumental because they become assistants, they become youth coaches, and if they're not playing, that's lost. And as well, these communities suffer, like Williamsport or Omaha or the Wilmington Blue Rocks or the Lakewood Blue Claws here in New Jersey, the Philly Single A affiliate. It's not just the major league teams, but you see these communities that the minor league teams are fun, friendly. Like I would say, every Major League Baseball fan has to go to a minor league game at least once in their life, because I think that is pure baseball in terms of what the game should represent. There's so much signage and corporate marketing in Major League Baseball. And I think with the minor league, you go to a game one of my bucket lists is to go to the College World Series.
I've been to a game.
Yeah. What was your experience like?
Oh, I loved it. It was great. It was great. You're sitting in the bleachers, like you could bring your own stuff in. It was a wonderful experience. It was pretty cool. I
think it's just nice, and it's nice to see families around, just enjoying the evening. I'm a romantic for baseball, so that's what I love. I mean, I love my Phillies, but also I don't want to see the minor league suffer.
Right.
And that's what I'm worried about. That's what. I do think I think Major League Baseball will either this year or next year will come out. They'll play, they'll get TV revenue, they'll get money. But I'm just sorry for the minor league teams. Mm-hmm. That's what I want. I want everybody to go to a minor league game and go to church. I don't know.
Well, Pete, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you for spending a little bit of time with us and sharing your faith journey with all of us. We'll be back, ladies and gentlemen, next week for another edition of Portraits of Faith. He is Pete Sanchez. I am Father Rob Sinatra. Thank you. God bless you. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a good night.